Hello, Wisdom Seekers. Welcome to Wisdom Seeker Live podcast. Glad to be back. We were off last Monday, but ready to get back at it. And we're going to work on conversation today that I think is pertinent in our current environment. In the meantime, we just want to, as always, explain that what wisdom is for us on the podcast. And wisdom is a journey or a process that involves three steps. And the three steps start with knowledge. And knowledge is something that we gather formally, informally. It's data, information, and obviously there is plenty of knowledge to go around. And
three steps.
Hopefully,
and the three steps.
Excuse me, having technical things. Hopefully, we will begin to gather knowledge on a daily basis. I know I approach each day with the idea of gaining something new every day, but knowledge is just the first step in that process. It is not the end, and it is certainly not where we get the power from to live most effectively. And so that's the first step, and that's to gain knowledge. Second step is to take that knowledge and begin to get understanding. And understanding is where we begin to take the knowledge that we gain and apply it and use it in our lives, and find answers to questions, find solutions to problems, and again, make it personal, make it real. The third and most important step, though, in this journey or process is when we move into the area of wisdom. And wisdom is about taking our knowledge and our understanding and seeing it from a much bigger perspective. A perspective that has to involve ourselves both inwardly and outwardly. And that's important, but just as important part of this is that we have a perspective with the understanding that what we do, who we are, what we say, the choices we make affect other people as well. And so that we see this much bigger picture of what we do and how we behave and so on. And that is the important step forward to make sure that we begin to have wisdom and make wise choices. And for those of us that have a spiritual bent, this perspective is expressed as seeing things through God's eyes. And that's a big goal for us as we seek wisdom. We want to be able to see things in that bigger picture. And that includes, by the way, seeing life and making choices, not just mentally, not just emotionally, but spiritually as well. It's something that we really need to be aware. And I believe that we are, in our cultures today, we are seeking knowledge that we lose sight of gaining wisdom. And we just really need to make that a priority, become wisdom seekers. And then at the end of the day, not only does it benefit others for us to be wisdom seekers, but it benefits us. And wisdom much greater than my own says that it's more valuable than even gold and silver and money and gems and so on. So again, I hope that you all will join us in the movement towards being wisdom seekers and gaining wisdom new each day. And I wanted to share, I had announced previously that I am co-author of a book, and it has been published. And I have finally got copies of this book. And this book is called Voices of Strength. And it's a story of myself and 16 other men and our journey into authentic manhood. And so we've shared the story, and we'll be doing some other things to let people know about it. But if you're interested and would like to purchase a copy from me, you can do that. You can get it directly from me. And if you would like, I'm happy to inscribe it personally. And so just let me know. Contact me with a direct message through LinkedIn. Or if you're on Facebook, you can find me on Facebook and then YouTube as well. So I just encourage you to consider it. It's kind of directed towards men, but I think anyone can benefit from reading about our journey into growth and overcoming and becoming more mature as persons and so on. So anyway, I just wanted to share that I've gotten the books in. They're available. And so you can request it directly from me if you'd like. If not, and we've had situations where it was not practical that way. And it's also available on Amazon in both paperback and in Kindle form. So I encourage you to look that up and read about our journey as we've grown. Want to go ahead and welcome a number of people. Greetings, Waswa and Amjad and Daniel. Always good to see you, Rosemary. Patsy, you as well. Glad to have you all with us on either, I believe most of you are on LinkedIn, but any of you that join us from Facebook or YouTube. Glad to have all of you. Want to encourage you to make comments, ask questions through the posting as we go along, because this is not just about me getting up and monologuing on a subject. This is about us seeking wisdom together. So thank you for being here. And our topic today is kind of a unique topic, but it's one that I've continued to watch and consider that we need to address, because we have generations now that are not gaining wisdom. They're so focused on knowledge, and stopping there, we have told a couple of generations that knowledge is power, and knowledge isn't power. It's the start towards gaining power. The real power in our life is to gain wisdom. So really want to talk about the topic of a phrase that's been around a long time, and it, unfortunately, I think we have taken it to an extreme, but it's letting children be children. And what has, part of the reason that is said is because sometimes life circumstances, either naturally occurring or occurring because of other people's bad choices, children don't get the opportunity to experience a healthy childhood. And I appreciate that. But I think the problem is that we have made this such a mantra that we are robbing our children of the opportunity to grow and mature and to start the process of gaining wisdom. Yes, children should have a healthy childhood, and I certainly agree with that, but it shouldn't be a childhood that protects the children to the point that they don't get the opportunity to grow, and that they don't get the opportunity to learn, and they don't get the opportunity to gain wisdom. And so I'm real concerned with that, and I think that we need to revisit and ask, where do we find the basis for a healthy childhood without causing the children to lose out on finding wisdom and growing? And that's the question that I think we should address today and find wisdom in, so that we as parents and grandparents, aunts, uncles, anyone that influences young people, we can begin to help them get started on a wisdom journey sooner rather than later. And some people would say, well, wisdom only comes with age. And there's an element of truth to that. But that doesn't mean that young people can't find wisdom. In fact, what's really fascinating to me is that over the years, I've observed some young people that are quite wise or have gained a great deal of wisdom in their life, and even more so than some adults I know. And what is the common denominator there quite often is that these children have had to experience the challenges in life, and they have had to address those challenges and learn from them. And so we just really need to be careful with this focus on letting children be children, because children aren't going to magically, at whatever the legal age is in a culture. For us in the U.S., legal age is 18. They're not going to magically at 18 years old become adult. It is a process that we as family, parents, grandparents, and so on, need to invest in helping our children grow and prepare to become adults. And one of the best things we can do there is to help them start their wisdom journey early. So that's where I'm coming from with today's topic. It's really been on my heart for a while that we are not allowing children or encouraging children to start their wisdom journey and their growth sooner rather than later. Let's see, I'm going to get some comments, and I like to always hear from everyone. So if you have a comment or question, please put it out there. Patsy makes a comment that wisdom is not knowledge. This is totally what we see and don't see in spiritual divine eyes perspective. Yes, wisdom is much more than picking up knowledge, data, and information. It is much more than that. And it, and again, I have to stress that wisdom is that should be valued. That should be our ultimate goal, and not just gaining knowledge. Knowledge is just the first step. And so we really need to help our children start on their journey earlier. The value is that if we can help our children begin to grow in wisdom, they are more likely to make better life choices as a result of the wisdom. And so we really should make that the focus rather than strictly letting children be children. Patsy makes another comment that life is about journey for us to explore and embrace. Indeed, that's what we need to really help our children understand. Being willing to embark on the journey that we call life. And that involves, by the way, risk taking. And I'm not talking about being foolish at all in the risk we take, but we need to let our young people risk making a bad choice when they're still young, when they're still under some protective care of us as parents, grandparents, and family, and to take a chance at failing, because we're all going to fail. And failing in our choices is not doesn't make us a failure. What makes us a failure is when we get to a point where we're unwilling to risk failing or we give up. And so, again, this is part of a process that we need to rethink, and that we I think we've got to be very careful how we approach it. And I think if we're going to approach it wisely, it needs to be with the idea of having the children begin to grow and not focus on this childhood lifestyle that is designed not to be an end state, but it's rather to be a transition in order to ultimately grow, become healthy adults, including having wise perspectives. Rather than us trying to make those decisions for our children, we need to really encourage them to seek out and explore and try to help them grow. And this includes finding out who God's made them, because quite often we try to mold these children under the guise of letting children be children. We try to mold them into what we live to regret or whatever in our lives, and that's not what's the healthy place to be. Welcome, Lydia. Glad to have you here, and appreciate you being here. And let's see, Patsy has another comment or two. Says, let children be children. Never manipulate all this pure child wisdom. They show us the purity they love. And yes, there's value in children being children, but the problem is our cultures have made that a steady state. They've made that a destination and not a process to grow into a mature and wise adult. And so we really need to encourage them to grow and explore starting young, and us guiding them into finding wisdom. And by the way, us guiding them into finding wisdom doesn't involve us telling them everything about or giving them all the wisdom that we've theoretically gained. It's okay that to be a part, but the bigger thing is to help them make finding wisdom a part of their life, just like we should be doing as an adult, that we help them to prioritize becoming wise and not just knowledgeable. Let's see. Rosemary comments, says, I love the wisdom I get to hear and share with my grandchildren. The conversations I have with my 5-year-old granddaughter is filled with all manner of issues that she notices and how she takes on the day-to-day choices she makes. She's determined to push herself to do what sets her mind to. It frustrates her when her little friends don't take on different things or taste different foods or play different games. Rosemary, I like that perspective. It's not that we have to force wisdom on the children, our grandchildren, and so on. And it is a matter of guiding them into finding wisdom and doing so as best possible. And when they do, when we help them do this, what really happens, rather than restricting them to one set of thinking, which is also something else some adults are guilty of, we're actually helping them explore their potential as a God-created human being. And it really is delightful to watch as it happens. Welcome, Lee. Glad to have you with us. So again, this focus on letting children be children I think culturally has become out of balance. We're so concerned with not allowing our children to take risk, or to including risking failure or making an unwise choice or something, and protecting them from their consequences. And I think that's unhealthy. For us, it's unhealthy for them. And as the quote that I have on the Wisdom Seeker event today is from Whitney Houston, talking about that our children are our future. And in the quote, she talks about teaching them well. And that's part of the problem, is that we have stopped teaching our children well. We are not guiding them into being wisdom seekers, finding wisdom in their life, because wisdom is available at any age. It's not age dependent, although some aspects of wisdom take time and take experience and life. But it doesn't mean that the journey can't start even as children. And I think as a culture, the sooner and more that we make it a point to help our children begin to find the value in seeking wisdom, the better it is for them and the better it is for us. And part of the way we allow them to do that is, what Rosemary comments is talking about dealing with issues in their lives and dealing with the consequences of the choices they make. Too much of our culture is about protecting children from consequences. And that is the most unhealthy and I would say selfish act that we as adults do. And that is to shield our children from consequences. And now bear in mind that I understand that there are times such as extreme physical harm and so on that we have to be careful, and we want to help them learn, but not to the extent that they're permanently harmed. But that is not what we're experiencing today. We are protecting our children from bumps and scrapes and minor learning opportunities, and letting them feel and deal with the choices they make and the consequences that go with them. And we're doing a lot of this under the guise that we're going to let children be children. And that is has become a problem within our cultures. And we are now seeing the result of that in the lives of a lot of our young people. They are not prepared to make wise choices because we as a culture, we as family, have not taken the time to help them grow in wisdom. We've been so focused on having them gain knowledge and stop there, and then to protect them from the consequences of the choices they make. And as a result, we are causing our young people to not have the opportunity nor learn the way to gain wisdom and even make it a priority in their life. And the value of wisdom is that we begin to help them make better choices sooner and deal with life situations better from a better perspective. And that's the value of wisdom and helping our young people gain wisdom. And that means not allowing children to stay children, because eventually we've got to help them grow into adults. And that doesn't just kind of magically happen at a certain age. Welcome, Richard. Glad to have you with us. And Sharon, always good to hear from you. Good to see you. Let's see. Richard has a question. So let's see what that question is. It says, what are people thinking about the difference being a parent and being a grandparent? Wow. Good question, Richard. There is a lot of cultural impacts and influences there that we ought to consider, and how we define culturally what that looks like. I know for me, I'll share my history, and that is I was a father at a very young age. I had my first child when I was 20 years old, and I was a conscious father and wanted to teach my children and help them, and worked hard for that. But when I became a grandfather, I began to really understand the responsibility of being influence on young people. And frankly, I was a bit more pensive or thoughtful about becoming a grandfather than I was a father. And that's mostly because when I became a father, I had a lot to learn and still experience. And it's rather interesting that in some cultures, especially in the U.S., the role of a grandparent has become one of, well, I get to spoil my grandchildren. And I understand the sentiment of wanting to do special things for our grandchildren and be able to help them with some fun and things. But having been around children and worked with children over the years and seen what it looks like when grandparents especially are successful in spoiling their children, it breaks my heart because that is it's unpleasant for most everyone, but worse than that is the negative effect on the child or children involved. And so, Richard, to me, part of my role as a grandparent is to be a part of the process of helping my grandchildren gain wisdom as they go through life, and to be someone to also impart wisdom to my grandchildren in a way and through the relationship that is different than what their parents are. So that's my take on it. Love to hear everyone else's comments as well as to your thoughts on the issue of parenting versus grandparenting. Welcome, Eunice. Glad to have you with us. Always good to hear from you. And let's see, get some more comments here. Rosemary is sharing a song. So if you see those in the comments, there's a song called Teach Our Children Well. And it is a pretty good song about taking responsibility for helping our children learn and grow well. So thanks for sharing that. Let's see. Eunice has a comment. She says, I'm concerned about child labor deprives children of their childhood. The topic, let children be children, is a wise one. And yes, Eunice, I know that part of the background to the phrase, let children be children, is in fact a response to abuse that occurs in some cultures with children, in that they are used as a commodity, if you will, for labor purposes. And I appreciate that that is not a wise approach. But on the other hand, to not have our children grow in wisdom and be a part of their family as a responsible member is just as unwise. In fact, one of the questions that I like to talk about or deal with parents and their children is about taking responsibility for the family household. When do we have them begin to take those responsibilities? And I think that, again, the sooner we do so, the better it is for our children. And that is not for the purpose of using children as free labor. That's not the goal at all. But in appropriate ways, with guidance and support, helping them begin to learn how to be responsible, and to do so by being a responsible part of the family. And that involves doing things that have to happen with the families. The term that we use in English is chores, doing chores around the house, such as picking up after themselves or cleaning their rooms and different things. And again, the goal is not to take their childhood away, but rather to help them begin to learn to be responsible and help them learn that there are consequences related to their choices. For example, just as I talked about picking up our rooms, one of the best ways for a child to learn about the concept and principle of consequences is if they throw their clothes on the floor and make a mess, that one of the consequences is they're going to have to pick it up. Another consequence involved is if they don't take care of their clothes and they wear out prematurely, they may have to not have as many clothes, or if they've got favorite clothes that they like to wear, they may not get to wear it because they haven't taken responsibility to help keep them picked up and neat and clean and so on. So it's really of value to help our children, again, as young as possible, begin to understand consequences and dealing with those. And that's part of our wisdom journey, is as we begin to see what happens with our choices and be prepared to address them, and more importantly, to grow from them. So it just is a key piece. And when we get so focused in on protecting them and make having a childhood a major place to be, even a stopping place for many, we are doing them great harm and causing them not to get wisdom. And again, the other extreme, and it does happen, is that we have situations where children are growing up or being put in an environment where they are having to prematurely take on adult responsibility and so on because of different reasons. And that's unhealthy too, but we've gone overboard trying to overcome that to a point that now we're out of balance the other way. Lydia has a comment. And again, I love hearing everyone's comments. Hope that you'll continue to ask questions, make comments. Train our children in the way that they should go so they'll not depart from it. It's crucial to lead our children with the wisdom of God. Indeed, if we're going to help them grow in wisdom, part of that wisdom is about understanding who they are fully as a person. And, one of the things we talk about on Wisdom Seeker Live is that we are made up of three parts. We have a body, we have a soul, and we have a spirit. And part of helping our children grow and mature and be wise has to involve all three parts. Not just a healthy physical body, not just a healthy mental and emotional state, but also a healthy spiritual state, because that's all part of who we are. And in order to truly have wisdom, it has to incorporate all parts of our being. So well commented there, Lydia. Thank you. And let's see. I believe this is Sharon. And Sharon comments that children should be taught from their parents values and right and wrong. And that's indeed true. In fact, it is a parental responsibility, and I'll even take it a step further, that the ultimate responsibility for our children being taught is primarily with that of their father. And it is the father's responsibility to help train children and give them wisdom. Now, I hope people know me well enough to know I'm not talking about that somehow the father is superior to moms or any of that kind of stuff, because we're all created with great value, and whether we're male or female doesn't change that value. We each have much to offer and much to contribute, but the responsibility of oversight for children's teaching falls with the father. And the problem we have is there are a lot of fathers that aren't taking on that responsibility. And also bear in mind, I'm not saying that the father has to be the exclusive teacher. It's that they have to take responsibility. And and it's okay for fathers to delegate or to get assistance with that process. But in the end, the father should take that responsibility on to make sure that their children, as the song that Rosemary shared and as the quote from Whitney Houston said, it is our responsibility as fathers to make sure that our children are taught well, not just taught. And I have to comment that part of teaching them well is helping guide them into learning to be wisdom seekers and benefit from starting that journey as young as when they're little. Rosemary offers a thought on Richard's question. Richard, as a parent, much of my time was spent raising my children, guiding them, helping them to understand who they were and allowing them to make many mistakes. It was difficult as I became a single parent at a time when ill health took over. As a grandparent, my adult children knew that they could rely on me to be there for them and for their children without taking over or telling them how to raise their own children. So well put, Rosemary. Our role as grandparents is to be there and being support. Again, we have created some challenges in the grandparenting role that it has become a popular mindset that we're there to spoil our grandchildren. And again, I appreciate doing special things for them and making them feel special. But one of the things that I have chosen is that it is not my goal to spoil them. If anything, as Rosemary talks about, it's my goal to support what they're being taught and help reinforce and to share wisdom that I've gained along the way that maybe their parents are not able to do at a given point. So a grandparent is there again to help our children and our grandchildren become wise people in the end. That it should be a big priority for us if we are doing what I think we should do in those roles. Okay, let's see here. Good comments, by the way. Sharon makes a comment that help our children and grow and learn wisdom and right from wrong. If they do wrong, there should be, and for me, was consequences. My dad went with me to buy my first car. I paid half and Dad paid the other half, and I had the responsibility of paying him back every week, which I did. I appreciated that responsibility more than anything. Yes, having the opportunity to learn responsibilities, consequences of our choices is all part of the wisdom journey. And the more that we can help our children, grandchildren be able to experience and benefit from that journey rather than just having fun in life all the time is a key part. And again, to Eunice's point, there are situations where children are being misused and they don't have any childhood options at all. And that's just as foolish, but we tend to have gone the other extreme. Rosemary, understand it's late there in Sydney. Glad you've joined us today and contributed, and look forward to seeing you next time. For those who don't know, it is probably 11 or 12 o'clock at night in Sydney, but yet Rosemary still makes the effort to join us, and I appreciate it. Let's see here. In fact, Rosemary has another comment she makes. She says, I was speaking with my youngest son this last weekend. He is just shy of 40 years old. I reminded him that even though he's married and has two wee ones of his own, he is and will always remain my child. My children will always be my children regardless of how old they are. I agree, Rosemary, as a parent of adult children. It hasn't changed my sense of responsibility for my children. The dynamic has changed some, but it is still my heart's desire, where possible, to help still encourage and support my children in finding wisdom. And I think, again, that is the benefit of being a grandparent or the parent of adult children, if we make that a priority. Because at the end of the day, it's the wisdom that we gain. And as we live wisely, we start making better choices, and we start having better consequences as a result. Are we going to ever get to a point where we've arrived and we only make wise choices and all that? Not likely at all. But doesn't mean that we shouldn't be striving in that direction to always be making wise choices. And by the way, part of us making wise choices is we are role modeling for our children and grandchildren how to be wise and why there's value in being wise in our choices. So circling back around our topic, is it a priority for us to let children be children? And there is a value in encouraging children to be children, with the understanding, though, that letting our children be children is not for them to stay there. It's not a place for them to reside, if you will. It is a place, and it should be an experience for them to experience life, and with our guidance, grow through that experience, and just really have a different focus. Yes, allow children to experience their childhood, and hopefully it's done in a loving environment, but not an environment that is overprotective and causes them to not learn and not gain wisdom. Welcome, Razine. Glad to have you. So, real important that we recognize childhood is a part of our growth as a human, but it is not a place to stay until some magical date when we theoretically become adults. And that's where we're getting in trouble, is we're focused on having children stay children. And I'm concerned that we have some people that are of an adult age that are still trying to be children. And they even go so far as to brag about not growing up and things like that. And that's a problem, not just for us, but for them. It's unhealthy, and it's a place where they will end up having negative consequences and continue with foolish choices if it's allowed to continue. So we've got to find that balance. We've got to give children an opportunity to experience life as children, and part of the value of that is the experience of exploration, the experience of imagination, and so on. But we've got to encourage children to know and understand that at a point they're going to be on their own and taking on more responsibility for themselves. And that is better done as a process while they're children, rather than magically when they turn 18, which is legal age in the U.S., or whether, maybe it's other milestones such as graduating from school that automatically somehow now they are adults. And it's not the way it should be happening. It's a process that we should be involved in as parents, grandparents, family, to help our children grow and towards adulthood, and to do so beginning to depend on and seek out wisdom in their choices. And it's just such a key piece. And when we get to, or what we've got now, is we've got a lot of children that are not successfully transitioning to becoming responsible adults. And it's easy to point our finger at the children and say it's your fault. No, the fault lies with those of us that are parents and grandparents for not making it a priority for our children to gain wisdom in their life as they grow along and grow up. And so our wisest move is, as been shared by Rosemary, and I think a couple others made comments, that we're there to come alongside and support them, support our children in raising their children, and to help them understand basic human values and instill them into our children. One of the biggest things that we need to do, and the choice that we need to help our children in, is to learn how to love. And the problem is that we, too much of our cultures lack an understanding of what real love is, because part of real love is a willingness to give of ourselves or put our interests second or third to others along the way. And that's part of that growth process, learning to teach our children how not to be selfish and giving them direction and insight into values that go along with that. And Lydia makes a great comment here that goes right along with it. Says we need to guide our children with values, self-worth, and also to set boundaries. Indeed, Lydia, setting boundaries is another part of wisdom and growing in that wisdom even as a child. And that means setting boundaries for others in terms of not allowing others to direct and control our lives, but also setting boundaries for ourselves. Part of the challenge we face today is in letting children be children for an undetermined amount of time and without priority to change it, is that these children are maintaining the behaviors of what children do, and that's being selfish and not setting boundaries for themselves. You know, it sounds good as an adult, we need to set boundaries for others, and that includes saying no and different things. I get that. But there are other boundaries that we need to set, and that includes boundaries for ourselves in regards to how we behave in our society, in our cultures, in our family. And let's see, I believe this is Sharon that says, Lydia, I agree with you. We do need to guide our children with values and set boundaries. Children should be children, but they should also be taught values. That is getting into part of what I'm trying to get us to consider, is that we've got to find that balance. And unfortunately, culturally, what I observe, and if you see something different, share it. But what I observe in our current culture is that we have gone to an extreme of not encouraging and supporting and helping our children grow as children to prepare and be ready to be effective and responsible adults. And what we see still adults that never have made that transition, that are making unwise and childish choices even as an adult. And that's part of the downside to what we have done with making it a big deal that children should be children, and not keeping it in perspective of, yes, children should be children during their time as children, what is, generally speaking, normal childhood period, but not to the point that we protect them from their own choices and consequences, and not to a point that we cause them to be risk averse to a point that they're fearful for making choices or get fearful when there is a risk involved. And so, again, children should be children during the age that that they need to be children, but it should not be to the exclusion of helping our children to start their wisdom journey as soon as possible. Because the more wisdom they gain, the more likely they're going to make better choices throughout life, to a point that they will be healthier, and our culture, our society will be healthier as well, as including our families. Part of the problem we have with family discord and difficulties today is because we are so focused on letting children be children, and they are behaving childishly rather than having them transitioning going forward into becoming wise people. And when, again, the sooner we can help them be prepared to make wise choices. And again, I'm not talking about just spoon feeding them everything in terms of values and so on, because that's also can be unhealthy, but rather guiding them to make wise choices, to understand these values, and why the values, not just, well, we've always done it that way and so on. And it's just, I think we've got to really focus, and this is something we as grandparents especially are in hopefully a better state or circumstance to be able to help do this and support our children in the process along the way, as I believe Rosemary talked about. So letting children be children, there's value to a point, but we've gone to an extreme where we are encouraging children to be children to a point that we have some adults that still want to be children, and they say that they don't ever want to grow up. Well, that sounds cute and fun and all that, but the problem is by never growing up, we make foolish, childish decisions and have consequences that occur as a result. And that is part of the problem we're facing today. We've got a lot of chronological adults that still are being children because they were told that's the magical age in life. And unfortunately, that is not true. Magical age is when we begin to live who we are created to be, with the understanding of our value as a person that is unchangeable, immutable, and cannot be lost or taken from us. And as we begin to live with that perspective and learn how to live wisely, that's the magical time. That's the time where we learn about what the Bible calls living abundantly. And so that's where we want to be. We want to be able to help our children get to a point that when they become adults, that they are able to live abundantly, not childishly. And so, am I concerned about letting children be children? I think taken in the extreme that we have taken it, yes. What can we do? I think we've talked about parents. You want to encourage your children to find wisdom in their life, and that means allowing them to make mistakes and to then deal with the consequences of their mistakes within limits. Please understand, I'm not talking about taking our hands off and telling our children to go be adults at child age, but at the same time, we need to stop focusing on being children in terms of our wisdom, in terms of our maturity and growth. One of my sayings that's going to be in my book that I'm going to produce is that we need to have the faith of a child, and that is an important part. But we need the wisdom of a sage, and you need both. You don't need just the faith of a child. You need the wisdom that goes along with life as we begin to experience it, and also to mature and grow as a person, body, soul, and spirit. Let's see. Patsy makes a comment, a good clarification. As I said, childlike, not being childish. They all are smart to build self-esteem for their personal development journey. Yes, I like the way you put that, Patsy. Childlike, but not childish. And that's how we begin to find that balance. But in order for them to have the opportunity to be childlike and to remain with that faith and that simplicity, we also have to encourage them into wisdom and to grow out of being children and to grow into wise and responsible adults. And that, by the way, part of being a wise and responsible adult is to be able to, at moments where appropriate, to have fun like a child. So I hope we will work on our priorities, work on our balance in this area, encourage our children to grow into wisdom, not just to stay in a state of childishness. Let's see. Lydia makes a comment. Let's see here. Says, indeed, Sharon, in order to cultivate faith and self-love so our children will not fall into any comparisons. So true. And I hadn't thought about that, Lydia, but one of the values of gaining wisdom is that we help them avoid getting caught up in the cultural comparisons and causing problems for themselves by that kind of pressure and process. So yes, all part of this perspective, this wisdom that we need to find. And so my prayer is that first, that each of you here will be a wisdom seeker. And secondarily, as part of that seeking wisdom, that we'll pass that along and encourage and help others, including our family, our children and grandchildren, to also be wisdom seekers. So thanks everyone for the time today. I appreciate all the comments and questions, and I pray that you'll go out and be a wisdom seeker in your own life on a daily basis. Thanks. God bless. By the way, just a reminder, if you're interested in the book that I'm co-author on, let me know. We'll work out the details. So thanks everyone. God bless. Have an amazing week. Take care. Bye now.